Okay guys, let's pretend you're playing a game, you get to this position. I'm going to need you to evaluate it and try to come up with a plan for the white pieces. Take as long as you need, and once you're ready, let me know in the comments if you are following this course, guys. This is going to tell me if we should continue to reinforce this or if we're good to go and we don't have to worry about it anymore. Now, there are two main games that I want to go over in this lesson. The first one, guys, you saw it on the thumbnail, and it is going to be more about something that we already covered on lesson 107. On that lesson, we talked about the Karpovian style, and one of the things that we highlighted is how we always talk about rooks on open files or semi-open files, but we rarely hear people talking about open ranks for our rooks. And one thing that we should know at this point in the course, guys, is that rooks like to be on open files. Better than that, they like to be on the 7th rank or the back rank. And finally, better than one rook on the 7th rank is going to be the two rooks on the 7th rank. Now, this game, I'm not going to go that deep into the details, but I wanted to show it to you for you to see how Gulko playing here as a white pieces, he was focused on attacking this king, but so far, he only has the bishop aiming that way, the queen, and ideally, these rooks will be involved as well. Of course, we can always think of the rook lift, rook rollover, but it's not going to be that efficient. Rook e4 seems to be better, but the pawn is on d5. So instead, he came up with one of the top moves that the engine recommends, guys. And let me actually go ahead and show you here. If I activate the engine, you're going to see that the top move is going to be rook e to b1. And the idea, simple. I'm going to go to the 4th rank, open rank, and then I'm going to bring it over to the king side and attack. And I could do the same thing with the other rook, guys. So this game, quickly, again, I'm not going to go into the specific little details, but you can see how the rook goes b1, b4, and next thing you know, it's going to go to g4 or h4. Now, this is one of those things, guys, that it seems like you're never going to use it in your games, but I can tell you from experience, if you've seen it before, it is always going to be at the back of your head, and whenever you need it, you're going to think of this maneuver. Does it work all the time? Of course not, but it is a good resource to be familiar with. So in this game, after queen c7, we have the black pieces putting pressure on the queen side, and the white pieces are focused on working on the king side. And then after a few moves with the queen, guys, you're going to see that we're going to make contact with the pawns. One thing that we're going to reinforce in this lesson is how pawns are perfect to open up the way for our major pieces, rooks and queen, right? So after king h7, h5, rook g8, and after we capture, the queen goes back to h3. And guys, just like that, not only are we opening up lines, but we're creating targets. And at this point, h6 is going to be an isolated pawn, the only pawn covering the king. And once we bring the rooks over, this is going to be just too much pressure on that pawn. So we got queen f8, the other rook comes over, and after rook h4, knight b3, guys, there's a very nice combination. So feel free to pause the video, take a few minutes, and see if you can figure it out. So at this point, the white pieces are ready to actually sacrifice on h6. So bishop takes h6, rook takes, and even though it seems like the king is defending the queen and everything is safe, we have now rook h4. And guys, notice how the rook that was doing nothing on the a file found a way to come over to the king side and pin the queen. Now, after we get that queen, we should be able, if I show you again the evaluation, you're going to see this is 8.12, completely winning for the white pieces. Still, many of us could easily blow this, so make sure that you guys take your time, set this up against the engine. I'm leaving the PGN in the comments or the description in order for you to just paste it and finish it against the engine. But guys, from this first game, before we go on to the Botvinnik game, what I wanted you to see is how those rooks that were unable to join the queen and the bishop, Gulko found a way to actually bring it over through the 4th rank. So keep that in mind, okay? Now, the second game that we're going to go over is a classic played by Botvinnik. And here you can see that we also have an open rank, but this plan, guys, I hope that you actually post a video. The plan should be about our rooks working on the semi-open file. Mainly what we want is to get to the 7th rank. So with that said, let's get to it. One of the things that I like to do in these positions, I get to this critical moment, my intuition is telling me, you know what, this position is critical, take a moment to evaluate, come up with a plan. And guys, we had a very good lesson 138, where we talked about the different factors that we need to consider in order to come up with a plan. And one of them was actually open lines. The other thing that I wanted to say before we start is we covered when we talked about the Capablanca endgame technique. One of the things that he does is that he visualizes the ideal position that he wants, right? So I want my rooks doubled on the c file. I want my knight to be able to get to b5 to put pressure on c7. So all of these I need to keep in mind. In that way, I start working towards it. So just to show you how the game continued, we have rook c3, of course, then pawn to c6, rook 1 to c1. Finally, we double tap, very straightforward. Anyone could have done this. Then pawn to f6. And now, guys, the second part of the plan is to bring this knight so that it is ready to get to b5. Don't forget, I mentioned already, our pawns are going to be crucial to open up lines for our pieces. So I want to get to c7. This pawn is going to help us do b5. If we have to sacrifice it, we sacrifice it in order to get to c7. However, I want to get my knight to a3 so that when I do b5, it's not a sacrifice. I could take with the bishop, and then my knight stays on b5. Knight, two rooks, a pawn on a6. This is just going to be too much. So knight b1, bishop d7, knight a3, very simple. And a question that I get a lot when I'm doing these lessons, guys, is, okay, why is it that the black pieces are not doing anything to stop the white pieces' plan? Well, you're welcome to try. There's not really much they could do. Like, for example, here, if they ever did b5 to stop us from doing it, well, this square on c5 is going to become weak. That's going to be a weak square. So all I could do is, if they did b5, just reroute my knight and try to get to c5. And to make things even worse, that's going to be a dark square that the bishop can never control. So instead, we got knight c7, and notice that our rooks are putting pressure on it indirectly. So now we got b5, forget about pawn takes because we get a free knight. They gotta take with the knight. And now, guys, we got bishop takes. I'm going to preserve that knight. Pawn takes, and then rook c7. Finally, my rook is on the 7th rank, and the biggest threat that we have right now is to do rook b7 followed by rook 1 to c7, and that's it, guys. Better than rooks doubled on the open file is rooks doubled on the 7th rank. And at this point, guys, your intuition should be telling you, take a moment, look at your candidate moves and see if there's anything in the air. Our pieces are active. Maybe tactics could be in the air. And of course, the black pieces simply do not want you to bring the two rooks to the 7th rank. So they're offering a trade of rooks. So what should we do? Well, I'm assuming that you paused the video, you looked at your candidate moves, you calculated, and guys, the move that they decided to do is actually the top move recommended by the engine. If you look here again, you're gonna see rook takes d7, offering the rook for free, because then when I get this pawn, it is just going to be knight, again pawn, and the rook on the 7th rank, it is going to be just too much. However, here Botvinnik decided to hit the king first. We wanted to go to a8. It could be handy, and for so many reasons, like we're threatening if the rooks ever get to the back rank, it's gonna be checkmate. But also in an endgame, that king is gonna take longer to come over to the center, right? So this check, very nice move. But then after king a8, we're going to take the bishop. And of course, we give him the rook. Guys, we gotta calculate, we gotta be careful, but it makes so much sense. Now when we take on b5, I'm hitting on a7. I'm still attacking these pawns back here. And I could even create a pass pawn if I wanted to. But just this coordination, this pressure should be more than enough. So now we got rook c8. Then we get another pawn, h6. Rook takes a7. This is just too much. And after king b8, we're going to hit him one more time. I need the king to be on a8. But also this, I wanted to say, you're going to see at different points in the game some repetition. And that's number one, to gain some time back on the clock. And we've talked about this before, but also there's a psychological effect that we discussed on lesson number 90 applied by Capablanca. But anyhow, king a8. Now, pawn to g4, just trying to get a pass pawn. And then after e5, what do you think? What should we do about this move? Well, I hope that you guys thought of pawn to d5. This should be a reflex. I want to create a protected passed pawn. So this is another liability for the black pieces. Now, after pawn to d5, we got rook c5, check, check, again, repetition, and then rook takes b6. Now we got 3 extra pawns for the exchange, plus a very dominant position with our pieces. So rook b8, rook takes, pawn a7, and at this point we force the king to come to b7, perfect for a check, and we go after the other pawn. So check, get my passed pawn, that's okay, but now I'm going to go after the f6 pawn. Guys, at this point, this should be very easy for you to finish. Again, I'm going to leave the PGN to this position in order for you to finish it against the engine. Excellent exercise. And if I show you one more time the evaluation from the engine, you're going to see 3.96, almost 4, completely winning for the white pieces. So after king b8, feel free to finish it against the strongest engine, and let me know in the comments if you were able to convert this position and the one from the other game. Now, only one thing that I wanted to say before we wrap up. Before, when the black pieces did, let me see. Okay, so right here, when they did rook c8, they were pretty much forced to do it, guys. If they had done something like, I don't know, rook c2, we could do check, check, and now if they go over here, well, knight c7, give me the rook, and I continue to be very dominant on the 7th rank. And that's, of course, why they needed the other rook on the c file. And of course, if they had done instead, let me go here, if they had done this move, we have check followed by skewer, and we're gonna get the rook anyways. So with that said, guys, I hope that this was not so confusing. I hope that it helped you reinforce this idea of how to use the rooks effectively in the middle game, because we already had a very good lesson on rook endgames. And now with this, unless you tell me otherwise in the comments, I'm going to put this to rest. We're going to focus on learning new strategies, new tactics. And with that said, guys, I'm going to see you in our next lesson.